I'm Mark Lund, the MPO Director.
Mark Milam, City of Los Rezos.
Good morning, Pete Alvarez, TxDOT.
John Wood with Brownsville Navigation District.
Drew Brown, BISD.
Manuel Alcocer, representing the Airport Advisory Board.
Eliseo Davila, Cameron County.
Javier Villarreal, Cameron County.
Alfonso Vallejo, Brownsville MPO.
Good morning, Antonio Zurita with the Brownsville MPO.
Caitlin Rocha, Brownsville MPO.
Steve Taylor with Copeland. I'll do a presentation on. Adrian, introduce yourself.
Adrian Funes, CCRB.
Luis Mendoza, City of Brownsville Engineering Department.
Andrés Espinosa, Texas, Eventos. Y Rubia Ariel, San Texas.
Hi, Eva.
Eva Garcia, Russell Trails and Services.
Raymond, I got you.
Raymond Sanchez with Texas, Illinois.
Mary Shanti, Texas Fire District.
Nova Shaw, Texas, Fire District.
Juan Bosques, Texas, Military Office.
Anthony Gonzalo, Engineering. Enrique Steve Brownsville.
Caitlin Blanco, City of Brownsville. Tracy Ortiz, Brownsville Metro.
Russ Rochelle, Financial Bank. Ralph Gallen, individually.
All right. The mayor was unable to attend, and Sophia Benavides, our vice chair, isn't here. The first order of business, we need to elect a chairman for the purpose of this meeting.
I nominate John Wood.
I second the motion.
And I acquiesce to Manuel or anybody.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm used to it, but let's see if I. Okay,
We have a quorum, sir.
we have a quorum already, and we did the introduction to our guests. Second roll call was on. Discussion, consideration, and action of adoption of minutes of the MPO Policy Committee meeting of July the 10th.
Yeah, that was
I
the
don't know if
evening
there-
meeting. If you can look it over, if there are any corrections.
Is there any correction, I'm assuming everybody read them? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to
moved.
approve.
Second. Everybody in favor, say aye. Item number 4.
Yeah, I'll read it for you, sir. Discussion, consideration, action on acknowledgement of substantial completion of the congestion and delay study. That's part of our congestion management process. We have Steve Taylor from CoPlan. He's going to make a presentation. I just want to, and what we're looking for is an action item that we would, when we say substantially complete, we're still making some corrections, some fine tuning of the document. What we're saying, it's at the 90–95% level. And we met at the technical committee, and they gave Steve some comments, some good feedback, and we told them we wanted more comments from them if they have any suggestions until the end of the month. So the final document will be produced next month, but we do want you to vote, and we feel that it is substantially complete, not just MPO staff, but the technical committee members. Steve, would you get up and give your PowerPoint to explain what we're doing?
Thanks, Mark, for that short intro. Morning. What I have to talk with you about today is congestion management process, which is a federal highway requirement that MPOs must do. That the spirit is that you optimize and manage your existing system to get the most out of it before consideration for added capacity and things like that. So what I'll go through is what those requirements are. So just quickly, this is like the menu. This is the action items that have to be included within a congestion management before added capacity, or that you consider that when you're ranking projects. So you basically develop your objectives. Your objectives are similar to managing your system, not reducing or eliminating congestion. We don't want that, because congestion is a sign of health and activity. So we just want to manage what we have. Define your network, You look at multimodal. You look at not only vehicular, you want to look at bus operations also. You want to collect the data to identify that delay and congestion, analyze and identify those problems, develop strategies of how to address it, and then implement those solutions, and then not only implement and walk away, but look back and look at the benefits. So what we're doing this time is a 2019 update to actually the last CMP that was done was in 2011. So we're able to look back and look at some of those changes that have occurred through the results of some of the implementation since 2011. So these are the routes that were included this time. As you can see, the vast majority of them, if not all of them actually, are surface streets, non-controlled access facilities that was focused on this time. So 2011, we looked at a larger network. This time, we honed in on where some of the identifying problems were last time and gave them another look this time in 2019. This is an example of what the data looked like that we collected. So we drove all these facilities, collected GPS information, detailed data to show where those delays, where that congestion occurs. So the red is indicative of, slower speeds. And as you expect, on the surface street system, a lot of those delays occurred at the intersections or at the signals, which is, again, an indicator of an operational delay versus, not really congestion. It's more of a hindrance as you're driving down these facilities. So these are some of the results, and I won't get into too many of the numbers, but what the primary indicator we use is what we call the congestion index, which is percent of posted speed. So if the posted speed is 40 and you're going 30, you're going 75% of the posted speed, or 0.75. So in our case, we define congestion as anything less than 0.6, so anything less than 60% of posted speed. So if you look at like the third or the second column from the right, those that are shown to be congested are less than 0.6. In the morning, we had about 16.5, 17%, and 16% in the PM as less than that value over the 100 miles or so of our network. So it's pretty consistent AM and PM. The vast majority of the network is in a stable and free flow condition. So these are the top 20, and if you look at the far right, look at the CI value, that's 0.24 is number one. So that's 24% of the posted speed was the average speed between intersection points, and that's where this is categorized. So between successive intersections, the average speed to get through one intersection and then traverse through the next one was an average speed of 24% or 14 miles per hour when the posted speed is 60. So that means quite a bit of delay within that section, whether it's throughout the entire length of the section or only at the endpoint or at the intersection. And as you can see, this one is on 550 or right around the interchange area with 69 East. So I believe this one's controlled by a stop sign also. So that kind of is a contributing factor that, you're in that environment along the frontage road in this case, coming off the freeway, and you're stopping at a stop sign with a lot of traffic. So, that's an area that we can consider, in the future to look for, signalization. Second column from the left shows what the ranking was in 2011. So you can see 3 of the top 4 were on the top 20 last time also. So those continue to kind of float to the top in terms of congestion. If you look in the route area, you'll see a lot of State Highway 4, 48. I think 11 of the top 20 are on those routes. So that continues to be a pretty hot area and hot corridor, throughout from 2011 and 2019. These are where those top 20 are. Number 1 is in the far, top left corner, you can see, along with 11 below that. So some of these may be some of your favorite or not so favorite areas in terms of, delays. So these are areas we continue to need to give some attention to, operationally on the signalized corridors. Another thing we were able to do is to hone in on, is when I say the segment is defined between successive intersections. That could be a mile, that could be 2 miles, it could be, 1,000 feet. So in order to really hone in on where the problems were, we subdivided the segments into tenth of a mile intervals. Okay, so we can say, okay, where did that delay occur? Did it occur throughout the segment, or was it only at the downstream link? So this boxed area shows where that congestion occurred. It showed that 16%, only 16% of the areas were congested within the tenth of a mile corridors for 68 miles. And of those, 76% of them had a signal at that link. So that means all the other subdivided segments along that longer corridor were uncongested. All the congestion occurred wherever the signal was at 76%, which is only 10%. So 10% of the corridors contributed, 10% of these 10th of a mile segments contributed to 17%. So it's actually a smaller area that has congestion than what the indicators tell you, but there's so much delay occurring at the intersection, it's bringing the whole corridor down to make it look congested. These are the areas when we're looking back. Again, looking back at the action items, one of the things was to look back at the improvements we've done since 2011 and what are the results? Do we see any benefit of some of those projects? So the green areas here are those that actually improved from 2011, and the red are those that got worse, through either new development or just continued growth, things like that. So it's good to see that there are quite a few green areas. So, hopefully that's through projects. And what this highlights is some of those projects that have been implemented since 2011. One was the use of some Category 7 funds for implementation for some improvements along the corridors for signal improvements. New equipment, new timing, and it contributed to some of those improvements. State Highway 48, that hasn't been implemented yet, but it is a project that was in the process to address some of the congestion that was identified. And that's pending and hopefully soon to be implemented. The 7783 ramp configuration, that greatly improved the operations and safety in that area along the frontage road and the weaving situation and the changes in the exit configuration. So it really did show some benefit. And actually currently and ongoing, some work that the city of Brownsville is doing to replace a lot of the signal hardware that's at the intersection that is aging and in some cases not working as it should. So that was a great opportunity and will show some benefits here soon. So what we did to focus in on some of those operational issues is we, through the committee, chose eight intersections to really look at in more detail, to look at specifically as to what's causing some of that congestion. So we try to group them as somewhat of a subsystem so we can see the benefits of when you do put signals together and operate them together and coordinate them, what can we see as the result? So we had 3 of them on 802 around the mall area, 3 along 4 and 48, which 2 of those are actually new signals that are soon to be installed at Austin and Xena. So we're able to give the city timing so they can, when the signals do go in, they're able to immediately put in this improved operational plan. And then 2 over by the airport. And what we were able to show is of those existing signals, of those signals, we had 6 that were existing, 2 of them were new. But what we found of those 6 that were existing, 100% of those had failing vehicle detection. So that means, the city staff has been unable, through either budget reasons or whatever, to really, do the necessary maintenance to keep the system operating as it should. And that's creating a lot of the, I'll call it artificial congestion, because it's something that can be addressed. It's not because of capacity, it's because of operational deficiencies. And the staff have told me, the money that they have available to them really doesn't allow them to do any maintenance on that system. So they're really just having to wait and watch and use the funds they have on other more critical items, because it's not necessarily a safety thing. I mean, it can create safety because people get uneasy and impatient with some of the delays, and they'll take bigger and bigger chances. So it does lead to safety issues that need to be addressed. But what we're able to show is, with these 8, if we're able to address the maintenance issues and we're able to put in new operational improvements in terms of timing, that these intersections could operate at A, B, or C level service, which, just think of a school class grade. And I'm sure none of you got into the F category at school, and we don't want to see traffic there. But A, B, and C are actually good operational results. And we're able to do that without any capacity issue or improvements or anything. So that's actually a good thing. And it's actually, we call low-hanging fruit. So it's not a high-cost improvement item, relatively. You don't have to buy right away. You don't have to tear anything up and build construction, widen the road. You just have to maintain what you have. Again, back in the opening comments, congestion management is to try to maintain and manage what you have before you add capacity. And we see plenty of those opportunities in this situation, where when we only looked at 6 intersections, and 100% of those had poor operating detection. So that's indicative of what we expect to see in the bigger picture. So in closing, the recommendations would be, increase the funding and support for the traffic signal maintenance, to allow them to do the proper maintenance. We would hope to see about 10% of intersections that have failing detection, not 100%. So we have a lot of room and opportunities for improvement there with that attention. Implement signal coordination, which will greatly reduce our stopping. As all of you are drivers, get to intersections and feel like you're stopping quite a bit. With coordinated timing, you can actually time that in such a way that you can make it through the system without stopping in most cases. And the other one is access management, through median, and not only adding medians after the fact, but planning and incorporating medians and access management techniques on the front end of development, so you don't have to solve the problem later. Because developers always want access. Well, a lot of times with good access and managed systems, it's actually more attractive and it's safer for people to access development, which is going to bring more traffic, into that area. So any questions at this point?
Like,
I have when you're talking about increasing the budget for the maintenance, what are we talking about? Like how much, what kind of an increase are you talking about?
We did a quick number, because I know y'all are doing controller replacements. I'm trying to remember what that number was, how many intersections. I think it was around 200 intersections where you're putting new timers, new controllers in the cabinets through some funds that became available. And I think the estimate was around $12,000 per intersection.
105 timers.
Was it 105? You're right. It was 105 intersections got new timers. And it was around 12,000 full replacement. If an intersection nothing was of value that was there, and it was just a full replacement. Luckily, technology these days has made it better, where you don't have to do a lot of underground work. You don't have to, bore under the road and put wires. There's a lot of wireless technology now that you can avoid all that and then don't have that problem for things to break. And so $12,000 for 100 plus intersections, that runs out to about $1.2 million. So for those same intersections. 'Cause what you're gonna see is by putting this new equipment at the intersections, you're gonna see a little bit of improvement. Obviously, it's necessary that you do that because it's a step forward, but you're not gonna see the full benefit of that expenditure and that cost without everything else working to complement that system. So it is a step forward, and I don't see, it's not like one step forward, two steps back. It is one step forward, but we need to continue that momentum with, addressing the maintenance issues. Because I think the staff were telling us that they get around $60,000 to $90,000 for maintenance a year. You can see, but they're not able to spend any of that on maintenance of the loops and detection and so forth. They must put that through, maybe an intersection goes down and they got to buy a piece of equipment to get it back up and running. That's a higher priority than taking care of something that's a detection issue. So they've been forced to kind of put that on the side for a long time. And you're not by yourself. I mean, I just finished looking at 170 intersections over in Hidalgo County, and the numbers over there range from 60 to 90% over there, where they have the same problems. But we were able to, similar to what y'all did on the set aside through your Category 7 funds, they set aside $1 million over there, and we replaced equipment at 122 intersections. And the cities did there was 80-20 match, so the cities contributed 20%. Feds threw in $800,000, and we replaced a lot of equipment. But in order to do that, the cities were required to fix their own loops first, and then we then buy the equipment for them. So through all that work and through the support of the four McAllen, Mission, FAR, and Edinburgh. Through that support of their commissions, we're able to make great strides over there in the last year or so. So it's going to be exciting to see the results. Does that answer your question? So that's, in terms of the rest of the system, but we just kind of did that quick number based on, the current activity that y'all are doing with the timers. So if you were able to bring those 100 intersections up, that's what that cost would be. Assuming we see similar results in terms of 100%, but I would hope some of those have some value, in them where you don't have to do a full replacement. So maybe that money can go a little further.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a comment. Now having answered Eddie's question, that answers a lot of the issues that you show in your conclusion and gives all of us a more definite understanding of what kind of cost we're looking at. Because your conclusion on this study, basically, as you've discussed, is operational deficiencies, and that's what you're talking about when you don't have the right equipment, or it's old, or it's not working properly, or it's not set up just right. And it is low-hanging fruit, as you mentioned, because that's the easiest part to take care of. It's just a matter of money, Commissioner. So.
My concern is how's it going to work now with the merged MPO?
Oh.
Will each county then be allocated so much money, and then each city within, how's it going to work when all the money's pooled?
I mean, so some of this is MPO, and I'll let Mark address some of the MPO questions, but some of this is MPO issues.
Some of it's just city, strictly
the
city
responsibilities. That's why over there, when the MPO kind of stepped in and said, let's take a regional perspective to this work, and they made some funds available, but they also said, well, before we were able to dedicate these MPO funds, cities, we need you to bring it up to a reasonable level of maintenance, and then we're able to buy this equipment.
But that's nothing different than if we didn't merge.
Right.
It's still the city responsibility to maintain and get these things in
That's what
order.
we voted on last week, though, right? Or
And so Mr. Lasso just walked in. I've asked him to speak to what we're doing on this issue, and perhaps on the 18th, I'd like if he could bring the presentation to really show the board where we are. The commission actually last night approved the advanced traffic management system, which is the brains of what's going to help synchronize all the lights. But he can speak to the game plan we have.
And that's important, Noel, and I will address it to you. For the last 20 years, what we've been hearing from the city, not from the MPO, but from the city, that we've got everything under control. And some of them were mechanical switches at the boxes, and some of them were electronic, and they didn't always talk to each other. They never talked to each other. But we were always told, well, no, you can go down the highway and miss every light, because it's synchronized that way. Well, you can't do that, and you haven't ever been able to do that. But we had a guy working the best he could with what he had to try to make it happen. And this, if everything were electronic, I would hope that we would be able to, and with some of these things that you're suggesting doing, to where they can talk to each other and GPS integration into it, so they know what the traffic is doing and where it's happening and when it's happening, might solve, apparently, according to the study, would solve a lot of our
I don't know if it'll solve everything, but
problems.
it'll definitely help and improve the traffic flow. Like Mr. Brown mentioned, we're, phase one was getting the timers installed. We're just about finished with that. We installed 105 timers throughout the city. We've installed so far 100. We need about 5 more, but we should be wrapping that up pretty soon. And now, last night, the software for these timers was approved, so we'll be integrating that and hopefully get that going as well. So yeah, we're moving in the right direction. We're hoping to improve the traffic flow throughout the city, especially in the main corridors. That are heavily congested. So yes.
So thanks to the city mothers and fathers for providing some of this funding to get some of this done.
Absolutely.
And there's federal funds.
Yeah, but what we'll do next meeting is really walk you through the presentation, so y'all can see there's a hybrid approach, because even to what Carlos is talking about, fiber is the ideal backbone for this, but it's also the most expensive option. So what we're proposing to do is to do partial expansion of our fiber network, and that for the high traffic intersections, and where we can't at this time afford to do fiber, we're going to have GPS installation. So we're going to have GPS can still communicate and still synchronize our entire network, but we're taking a hybrid approach where some intersections will get fiber, some will just get a GPS signal timer, so it can communicate with the fiber and allow us to use some resources to get the traffic management component, which is your control center, that can then take all that data and do the full synchronization. So we even had to be creative to allow for the full synchronization to happen, because fiber is just so expensive. So ideally, we want to grow into our network with fiber, but we're currently doing some fiber and the remaining part GPS, which is still much better than where we are today. We can walk you through, show you the maps and that game plan on the 18th.
And then what was brought up in your presentation, sir, was that developers don't always appreciate access management. And, I can understand if you don't have to stop anywhere and you can't stop anywhere because there's medians, that traffic will flow better and it will probably stop accidents, but it'll also kill the businesses on either side of it.
Yeah, and that's why there's a balance. There's a
Well, there
balance
has to
between-
be a balance.
Exactly, and I totally agree. I'm not saying let's put medians everywhere and don't have any driveways. I'm just saying, when you look for
Well,
opportunities.
that's kind of what we're getting in some other areas.
Right.
The driveways will tell them to use the back streets and
Yeah.
come into the back door.
Yeah.
There's some more discussion on that later on, I think.
One other, just real quick, education on detection. Whenever a loop fails, it goes into fail-safe mode, which means it continuously puts a call in to say there's cars here. So during peak condition, the loops don't really do too much for you, because you got enough traffic to really max out, all the different approaches anyway. So the signal timing that they're talking about, the coordination, you'll see an improvement, with the benefit of that system during the peak. Where what you're going to see though is no change in the off peak, because that's when traffic's lighter. So you're going to continue to see getting up to the intersection and the side street may not have any traffic on them, but they're still getting a green light. And that's because the loop's bad and they're telling us that somebody's over them when there's not. So that's where you're going to see some room for benefit for addressing the maintenance issues. It's just going to give everybody green up to 30 seconds just because, the loop's gone bad.
We have some that are 20 seconds, and the other one's 45 seconds, and the other one's a minute and a half.
Right.
So
it's just
we have to
fixed
control
time at
that.
that point, yeah. So it's going to continue to run the exact same thing whether anybody's there or not. So you're going to be sitting, and that's where when I was doing the analysis, it was very obvious in the field to me as a traffic engineer that when I got to the intersection and I sat there I had a half a mile of cars behind me, and the side street was getting 40 seconds of green when not a single car was there. That's not congestion. You know, that's some maintenance we need to do, and somehow find the opportunity and the funds to address that.
To me, occasionally I have to catch an airplane early out of the airport, and I live near Central Boulevard, right close to Boca Chica. And I can go out on Boca Chica, and I can spend 5 to 10 minutes at stoplights at 3 a.m., no, 4:30 a.m. in the morning, trying to get to the airport.
That's the
And I'm the only one anywhere.
Right.
You know. And I'm going the speed limit, hoping I'll catch the next light green, but I hardly ever do.
Yeah, exactly.
Steve, can you go back to the previous slide, please? So I just want to thank you for going through this whole process. I think you have brought some very good recommendations to the table. When all is said and done, Brownsville is the largest city in the valley. Population is going to continue to grow. I think we have identified opportunities for funding, if you will, that is needed in the maintenance and operations side of the house. Signalized intersections, synchronizations, things of that nature all go a long way. I agree, Commissioner Wood, that moving forward, there has to be a balance between raised medians and access for safety improvements. And there's different opinions on that, but I think that we have a tremendous opportunity moving forward. I would like to bring to the point a grand master plan. And this is an opportunity for the city of Brownsville to work with the Economic Development Council and others. I see Noel over there shaking his head because we've had this discussion about opportunities to identify industrial areas, industrial zones, if you will, commercial zones, residential zones, so that we can have a managed approach moving forward. Because if we continue to just build out the city without having those long-range plans, master plan in place, we're going to continue to see additional congestion. It's not going to go away. If you look at the roadways identified, they're all state roadways, but the signal responsibility falls back on the city. We will work with the city to see what opportunities we have. I think we've led a couple of projects over the last year or two to help address some of these concerns, so we'll continue to work through that. But I would like to bring out or point out that we have an opportunity, grand master plan, to try and have a managed growth in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question for this matter? Okay.
For action?
This is an action
Somebody gonna
item,
make that motion?
and we need a motion to acknowledge this report.
I'll move to acknowledge.
Second.
Have a second? Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 5, presentation of the 2020-2045
Before I start
Metropolitan
on our
Transportation
presentation
Plan.
on the MTP, or Metropolitan Transportation Plan, I have a housekeeping item. In your package, you have a memo on about TAP, the Transportation Alternative Programs. And in fact, we also have MPO resolution and a listing of projects. We had a very long technical meeting last week, and we got this figured out. The technical committee said, let's get these adopted. And that was great. We had about $4 million to account for, and then we also had about $102 million we needed to account for on Category 2, which we'll talk about on the MTP. I made a goof. I didn't get the TAP listed on the agenda. So what we'll do is we'll bring it back to you next month.
Okay.
You can look at the resolution in there. What we want to do is we want to adopt and allocate those monies, and then we'll pass that resolution over to TxDOT. They'll be able to, under the Category 9, to assign controls section job numbers and line up advanced funding agreements. So the technical committee did its job, and I dropped the ball, but it's not a problem. We'll bring it back next month. But all right, so my apologies for that, but we will bring it back next month, and it shouldn't be a problem.
So we
Take a
go-
look at the resolution, that's your homework. All right, on the MTP, it's a very complicated document. You're looking out 25 years. The long-range plan is a fiscally constrained plan. That means it's not a wish list. There's many, many needs that we have. We now have in your spreadsheet, you can see some projects, some improvements that were proposed, we didn't have enough money, and we're putting them down as unfunded projects. In the future, if the money is available, we will get those implemented. But at this time, we have to be fiscally constrained. I'm going to go to the text. The text document has all the main ingredients. We're going to elaborate, and we're going to go into some other aspects. For instance, we haven't talked about TISMO, Transportation Systems and Operations Management, or Transportation Management and Operations Systems. Anyway, where you get the biggest bang for your buck. We had a meeting with Jesse Leal of the district earlier this year, and we talked about, he was going to give us locations for intelligent transportation, the message signs. So when we have a SpaceX launch in the future, we can tell the drivers where they need to go, which routes to take. And so that's something that will be in our plan. Let me just go through our plan. I kind of think of it as like you have 200 moving parts, and they all have to fit together. All right. We're projecting over the 25 years.
Mark, would you refer to the page number you're referring to?
Yeah,
so
on
that
page
we can all-
36, you can see the financial plan. This is the meat of the document in the text. And category 1, those are the monies we do to maintain our on-system roadways. And we have a very conservative estimate there. We're saying that average, we'll get about 6.8 million, and over the life of the plan, it's $122 million. Category 2, roughly speaking, we'll get 10.1 million a year. And how did we get this document? Well, Peggy Turin up in the TPMP, the Transportation Planning and Program Division, has been working on a forecast, and she used the UTP, the 10-year program. And so you can read in the document what the assumptions we used. We basically used her forecast, and then we bumped it up a little bit in the future because of the U.S. Census. Typically, you have your 2020 census, your 2030 census, and then 2 or 3 years later, the federal allocation gets a little bit bigger because our population increases. So this, again, is a conservative estimate. We will, roughly speaking, get $254 million. At our technical meeting, we still hadn't accounted for $102 million of on-system. We worked with the district. We put together some suggested improvements. And so when we were here on July 10th, we showed you a spreadsheet. Now we have additional items on that spreadsheet. We suggested to the district, and they concur. And again, this is 10, 11 years from now, to add overpasses on State Highway 48 near the port, at Chemical Road, at Anfels, add frontage roads, so that as we see the growth at the port of Brownsville, we'll be able to accommodate. So that's occurring 10 years out from now. And then it was actually a $76 million package, and then when you account for inflation, it uses up that other $100 million that we had as a funding gap. Category 3, those are special federal projects or earmarks. I don't think we're going to get any more earmarks, but there are special projects. Tiger, the city of Brownsville got a big Tiger award, mostly for transit. There'll be other special projects over the 25-year period. What will they be exactly? I don't know. It's reasonable to assume, and that's the key phrase, reasonable expectations. It's reasonable to assume that this region, which will be part of the Valley MPO, that we could obtain maybe $5 million. What it'll be exactly, I don't know, and we haven't allocated it for any particular project. Rural connectivity. We're not showing projects, but we're assuming that we will have access to those monies. When 48, remember it used to be an undivided highway, and people used to come back from the island, they were drinking too much, and there'd be head-on collisions. And to the credit, the district installed that median, and we have 2 lanes in each direction. That was done with Category 4 money. I can't remember whether it was 17 and a half years ago or 19 years ago. It was a while ago. It might have been 16 and a quarter years ago. So it was a while ago. In the next 25 years, that allocation was something on the order of 22 million. With inflation, if we were gonna do the same work now, it'd be about 40 to 50 million. I'm assuming that over the next 25 years, it's reasonable to expect that we'll get some money. You know, and so, but we're not showing any particular project. It would need to be programmed by the district. Category 7, in July, we showed you those allocations. Those are off-system improvements, and that was competitive, and the ranking of projects is how we allocated. Some of the ones that didn't fit, we're showing them as unfunded. All right, Category 8, safety. That's a modest program, but nonetheless significant. And over the life of the program, it'll be not quite 7 million. TAP, all right, I just mentioned that we have some more allocations to do next month. Roughly speaking, it's 400,000 a year. So over the life of the program, it's not quite 10 million. Rider 11B, that's a special program. It's only for the 3 districts that are on the border, the El Paso, Laredo, and the FAR district. It's reasonable to expect that this area will competitively obtain $10 million. Category 12, we're being aggressive there. We're anticipating there could be very quickly $64 million for the East Loop, and then some other money over the 25 years. We've not pinpointed any particular projects, but the forecast is, and so that's what we're showing on the forecast. All the other sections have been addressed. There's one section that I think is kind of weak, and that's performance-based planning and programming. We use that is a requirement under MAP 21 and the FAST Act. We've been doing that in terms of how we assessed and how we ranked our projects, but our text is a little bit inadequate, and so in the next several weeks, I'm gonna work on that and fix that gap. There's other things in there that are in our text, what's outlined on bicycle and pedestrian planning. We've done an amazing job on bicycle and pedestrian planning. There's so many things that, and we haven't had time to document them. And that we will take time and we will document them in our, but there's, the reason there was a big rush, and the reason why Mr. Lund is talking so fast this morning, is that the big federal requirement is that we share this draft plan with the citizens and with our stakeholders. Under the FAST Act, groups that are concerned with safety, like the Cameron County Emergency Services, the county sheriff, the city police, fire, U.S. Customs, we will share our documents and ask for their input. Private transit, all of the vendors that are over at La Plaza, we will share this document. Tourism agencies, we've done that in the past with Palo Alto, but and 5 years ago we started that with the zoo. And I'm going to share this document. And I figured out yesterday, if I spend 5 hours figuring out all the email addresses, why don't I just hand these, go over to the Midi Cultural District Zoo, here's your copy. Fine Arts Museum, here's your copy. Tell Mr. Lund what you want to see in the next 25 years. So that is a federal requirement, and that's why there was a big push for us to get this document to you, and then we will get it in the hands of our stakeholders, and they will have a chance to give us comments, and we'll let you know those comments when we come back. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 18th, where we hope to adopt this plan. I understand that Hidalgo County MPO, on behalf of the Valley MPO, they're going to take the document that we produce along with the 2 other documents for the other 2 MPOs and combine it in one big document for the Valley MPO, the Rio Grande Valley MPO. So that when the federal people review, they'll have one document and it won't be confusing to review. So my goal is to do an excellent document with no problems, no inadequacies, to get us to the finish line and to get it adopted on the 18th. I hope I've addressed, to me, the big part of it are the money and the projects, the reasonable expectations of what we can obtain, the fact that we don't list specific projects for Category 4 or Category 12. That's not a problem. Those will follow in turn. The Category 7, the Category 2, the Category 9, where we do identify projects, those are the critical elements. I'll now be quiet and try to address your questions if you have questions, or if citizens may have questions.
Mark, just a couple of comments. I just want to reiterate a couple of things. When it comes to categories 2, 4, Rider 11B, and category 12, obviously those are TxDOT discretion. Those funding is basically for on-system roadways. And so we have to keep that in mind when we're making project selections. TxDOT will be making recommendations for review and consideration by the policy board for approval. The other item I wanted to bring to the table is, we have a table here. This is a presentation only. You're trying to gather input. Is your intentions to get an action item and approval on the September 18th meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So with that said, there's a lot of very good projects in this tables. And I look at the very last sheet, and there's 7 or 8 projects listed there. Projects that we at TxDOT believe are good projects. They're good candidate projects. My question would be to the policy board, okay, how do those projects rank with the other projects that are already identified? For example, State Highway 48, I think you have a project listed there that calls for an overpass, right, next to the LNG facility. Is that a very good project? In my opinion, it is. I think that continued traffic growth in that area with all the things that are happening at the port, that is a very good project. Is it more important than other projects that are listed here? And I think that that's the challenge for this policy board, the technical committee, and really the citizens of this area that want to be heard, because we have to find a way to rank these projects. And obviously, projects that are ranked in the first 10 years in the UTP are projects that are allowed to move forward in the project development process, eventually into the TIP, which means they go to construction and we deliver a project. So there are funding constraints. It has to be fiscally constrained. And so we have an obligation to this area to ensure that we rank these projects. Because if we don't, we're going to be in a situation where we adopt an MTP. This MTP is going to be the project, higher ranking projects for this general area, the Brownsville MPO. It's going to go to the RGV MPO, and Harlingen San Benito has their projects, and Hidalgo County has their projects. So we're going to have a challenge, not only here, but in the entire region, to properly rank the most significant projects. We heard a presentation by Steve earlier that talked about congestion mitigation. And when all is said and done, I mean, we have 210 miles, I think, were studied, 100 plus segments and what have you, identified the top 20 most congested. Where do those projects rank in here? And so I would think that if a road's already there and you have traffic congestion already, we need to find ways to mitigate that. There may be new roadways that are added in the future, roadways that are expanded in the future and things of that nature. The challenge here is how do we rank them? And so I think that we need to keep that in mind. The technical committee, I would hope, takes a really hard look at that to ensure that we're doing the best projects possible. Another item I wanted to bring out is the category 9 projects. Just a friendly reminder, those projects compete. They're going to be competing against other projects. And once again, the policy board at the new RGV MPO will have to identify what are the most regionally significant projects, and those projects would rise to the top. Rider 11B, friendly reminder, we get $10 million a year in the FAR district, $10 million a year for 2 years, and then every legislative session, the legislatures consider whether or not to extend the program. Well, they went ahead and extended it this year, so we're anticipated to get $10 million 2020 and $10 million in 2021. However, there is no guarantee that we're going to get that money moving forward. I would hope so. Our region, the border region from Brownsville to El Paso, we need it, but there's no guarantee of that money coming in. So just want to make sure that we don't over project that money available there. And then as far as the category 12, obviously category 12 is TxDOT commission discretion. Those are project specific. And so there may be a project that gets the money up front, but it's not like an annual allocation. So just wanted to bring those things to the table to ensure that that everybody understands the significance of that.
Any other comment related to this subject?
Are there any comments on the long-range plan? On the long-range plan, sir? Come on up, Ralph, please.
Good morning to everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to come and speak before you and express my concerns. I own property on Boca Chica Boulevard. My family does too. I went to a hearing, the only one that I know of that existed in the city of Brownsville, about a year ago on putting these medians on Boca Chica Road between Paredes Line Road and Highway 48, that they would eliminate all left turns from Paredes Line to Old Port Isabel, and then from Old Port Isabel to Security, and from Security to Four Corners. That would eliminate a lot of businesses as well as this. You know, I understand there are safety concerns, and one of the things that I might suggest to you, so when you have that much traffic congestion, 45-mile-an-hour speed limit may be too high. Maybe lowering the speed limit would help, because eliminating the left turns, you're also going to eliminate business. Now, I questioned it at the meeting, and they said, well, our study showed that on North 23rd, when mediums were put in, and on 802, when mediums put in, sales tax increased. Well, there was one flaw with that. There were no businesses there when they put them in. Then businesses came in, it was all developed, and yes, sales tax increased. But it didn't increase because people couldn't turn left. I do not want anybody hurt. I do not want, I'm not an advocate of causing accidents. And I want to congratulate and thank TxDOT and all of you all for wanting to solve these very complicated problems of growth and trying to get the city to move forward and to be able to have some fluid deals. And the idea of synchronizing the traffic lights is something that's been a dream of the city for a long time, and all of us that have been working on all these things for a long time are I'm very happy to hear that. But let me give you some things. If you come, all traffic going to HEB is going to have to go, and to Chase Bank, and all those businesses that are in there are going to have to go down Paredes Line Road. If they're coming from Four Corners, turn left, and there is a sizable amount of cars doing this. And Paredes Line Road is not designed for the traffic that it's going to have. And you're going to turn left there, and people wanting to make a U-turn are going to be trying to get in and out of private property. And it's just going to be it's going to be a big bottleneck there. And you're going to have a bottleneck on people that want to get back to go to Whataburger or to Stars or to Lotus or to any of the many businesses that are to Lone Star Bank. Lone Star Bank is at Simpson and Boca Chica, one block in. Rusty's here, he'll speak on Lone Star Bank. But you won't be able to get to the drive-in window. You won't be able to get to the office tower. You won't be able to get into the shopping center that Guilford has there, where there are many businesses. And there's just a lot of businesses up and down both sides of that street that you have to have access to. So maybe slowing that down and putting some, 802 doesn't have, I know we need an east-west freeway. We really do. But trying to turn Boca Chica into that thoroughfare It's not the answer. It's not the answer. And I know you all have done a lot of work. And I would have been here earlier if I would have known that this thing was going forward. Never got any notice. I mean, somebody else may have. Everybody I've talked to has not gotten notice on Boca Chica.
It's been in the paper.
This,
Huh?
So it's been in the paper for the
yeah,
last.
this
But
has
you
been
know,
in the
Eddie, when you
paper.
have in the paper, excuse me, but when it's in the paper, there's an ad like this. How many notices in the paper, legal notices in
No,
the
I mean,
paper?
there've been big articles in the paper on the,
Well, I read the paper every day, and I don't remember seeing them. And you may be right, and I'm sure you're right, because you're very articulate and very exact. But if you're affecting the people on that street, I think they should personally be contacted. I think individually be contacted, because it affects their livelihood. We all have a lot of money invested in all that property. Walmart is another place, and all these places provide a lot of sales tax to the city. You know, Walmart turn it into Walmart there. Now, I understand that I just found out a little while ago that for the trail, the bicycle trails, we're going to be able to have a crossing. We're going to be able to have a left turn, a crossing, a stoplight there just for the people on bicycles.
Ralph, this is a situation that we have been discussing for more than a year now, and there have been town halls to address this situation, and the original project was reviewed, and we did some comments related to what you are saying right now, and I understand that we have a second or third design with changing stuff related to the stoplights as well as the left turn in the system. So I think that this is something that has been done, and I don't know if we have already the final design. Somebody can tell us it's already defined?
Yes, the design has been finalized. In fact, the project already let. We're getting ready to start construction.
So
And-
it's sorry for
I
this.
understand, Mr. Alcocer, and I appreciate your comments, and I understand what you're saying. But if I would have known about it, I would have been here a long time ago. I went to that meeting, I asked to be contacted. I wrote my name down, address, email, telephone. Please contact me for anything and everything, and public comments. Never got one single notice. Now, I felt very strongly about it at the time. I spoke out against it, as did many people. But all of that went by the wayside. They told me then, no, we're going to do this. And now I say you're doing it.
Yep.
But it's going to be a big, big problem, and it's going to be something that I think is going to be regretted that it was done in the fashion that it's being done. Because you're also going to have an uprise from a lot of people of business on that street.
The final design, I guess I may not have seen it, but I'll ask you, Pete, does it mirror or look a lot like as far as crossovers of 802? Or is it pretty much long runs and then some U-turns at some, a couple signalized areas as it was originally?
Yes, Commissioner, we had an original design a year and a half ago approximately. We came to the policy board here, had that discussion, presented, did a presentation for everybody, the public to see. We went back and did another iteration based on at the time, the city of Brownsville requested a traffic study, which we did. We conducted not only a study of the limits of the project, we actually extended it past it. And we identified opportunities for synchronizations and so on and so forth. We also took into consideration some of the comments received by the public regarding the distance between openings, full openings, and directional openings. And I can reassure you that we intended to mirror like 802, and in fact, we added more openings than 802 in order to address some of the concerns by the public relating to access to these businesses. So is there going to be an effect on business possibly during construction? I can see traffic patterns adjusting, and I'm not a traffic engineer, Steve is, but I think we can reference many projects, not only here in the valley, but in the state of Texas, that show and demonstrate that business actually thrives, whether the business was there before or after, because people feel much safer getting in and out of those businesses in a controlled environment as opposed to an environment where people are going against traffic. They're competing in the continuous left turn lane as to who gets to go first. It's kind of like a chicken mentality, if you will. You play chicken, and the bigger truck usually wins, right? And so what happens is you have, and we showed videos of that, I believe, in the meeting, where you had all this uncontrolled, unmanaged traffic flow. So yes, we addressed the concerns with the number of openings. We actually added more openings. We left some signals that were supposed to be removed. We actually left them in place. So we did.
Is there a copy of that available so
Yes, sir.
that people like me and
Yeah,
Leslie from the bank and Mike Pierce that has the
Yes.
shopping center there, all these people that would like to have been here, but they had other stuff, and we just found out about that this was.
Yes, sir. The project is already, has gone to letting. It was an April letting. The San Benito area office is the office that's managing that project.
I do not want to drive to San Benito. I want to know if there is a map, a plan available.
I believe the city also has a schematic. I can confirm that. If not, we can get the city a copy of that schematic that shows where all those openings are
I would
at.
appreciate one, because I don't want to be fighting you about something I don't need to fight about. I'm sitting here because I just found out about this, and, you know, and the port has now truck traffic on tanker trucks has increased to 1,000 trucks a day. Many of them are coming down 48. You're going to be turning left on 48 to get into Home Depot and to the bank and to Chick-fil-A and all that, and getting in, and all the employees that work at the call center there and all that. If everybody's going to have to turn left, and turn left, you know, with all those trucks, it's going to really be a. You can put all the synchronization. I just need to see what it is that you're talking about, because the only thing I've seen is what was presented at that meeting a year and a half ago.
If we can get your contact information, I'd be more than happy to set up and get you the information that you're requesting.
Commissioner Wood has it. I'll give it, we'd gladly give it to whoever.
What was your name? I'm sorry, for the record?
Ralph Cowan. I am a commissioner at the Port of Brownsville. I'm not here as a commissioner. I'm here as an individual.
Okay,
Noted.
very well. Any other comments on this issue? Okay.
Let me just one little tidbit, and I don't need to get up there, I think my voice will carry it out.
Your name for the record,
My
sir?
name is Rusty Rochelle, and I'm with Lone Star National Bank, and you know what? We truly agree with what you guys are doing, what you're thinking. We do need to be informed, and it's not just our bank. There's lots of people up and down that street that bank with us, and their success we try to help with, as well as, you know, we want to make sure that they're going to be viable. And you're right, it's in the paper. Unfortunately, not a lot of readership. That's just the way it is. And people aren't trained to look for these kind of things. So I think at this point, it looks like the decision's been made, things are going to go forward. Now what's important is each and every person that is on that street know exactly what's happening in front of them so they can be prepared. This project ain't going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some time, and we need to give the people that are up and down that street the time to adjust. Do I need to add another opening to a bank? Do I need to widen the one do I need to come in from the back? What do I need to do to protect our interests, and how can we help our people down the street with the funding they may need to do the things they need to do to make sure that they are there at the end of this? So, you know, that's our concern. It is a very tough thing. You guys have a tough job. We all understand that. But now I think the key is letting everybody down that street that did read the paper, or that's not here with us, or that's not, you know, been lucky enough to pick up on it, let them get the information now in a timely manner so it doesn't surprise them. And that's what I'd like to do.
Rusty, as is normal during construction, it's going to be a mess for everybody for a long time. But my concern goes along with Mr. Cowan's concern, is what happens when it's finished if people still can't get to where they need to go or want to go to without making a big loop and making U-turns and congesting other intersections like 48. If no one can turn into that area where Dairy Queen and Chick-fil-A is off of Boca Chica, and they've got to go around to 48 and come back in through it, that's really going to be a mess,
And I'm
along
hoping
with
that it's
others.
well thought out. I would think it would be, it's just we don't know. And there's probably one of the biggest problems that we have, is the unknowns for us. So we just want to be able to adapt, obviously, and do what's best for our businesses as well.
I was going to ask, is there an
I will say that-
opportunity for any, I know in the past, we had meetings with the public at the event center, and then there was another one here downtown. Are there any more schedules so we could do something to kind of, because it did alleviate a lot of my concerns, where I could see where the crossovers were and the U-turns. But I think Rusty has a good point. Can we schedule another meeting another presentation, just so that, I think people fear the unknown, and if we cover that, it would go a long way to help, because I know that there were a lot of amendments made.
So as we go through and we start construction, we will be doing public service announcements to provide updates as we go through construction. I think one opportunity we might have is to have both the City of Brownsville and the MPO put that presentation up, the one that was shown here that showed exactly where all the openings
Yes,
are.
that's exactly what I'm asking.
I did a Google search as you were speaking, and I put State Highway 48 public meeting, and the schematic is on. You can just Google it, and it's there for your viewing pleasure. But we'll work with the city and the MPO to put that presentation that I believe was Javier Martinez from our staff made a couple months back, make it available for everybody to see.
Yeah, I think a good faith effort goes a long way.
What is
Thank
the
you.
timeline and the expected day of construction to commence?
We actually have a presentation forthcoming from the area office. The project is scheduled to be approximately a year and a half to complete, and we're going to start in the next several months.
In the next couple of months. I would like to request, very respectfully, that before you start, let's get the information to all of the business owners on Boca Chica so that we can know exactly what to plan for. I remember when I had my car business there, and one day I woke up and they started digging, and I had a 6-foot hole in front of my business for 6 months, and it just about broke me because people could not get in my business until they were through with construction for the day that they'd make a little runway over. And then, you're going to have to turn left to be able to get on Kings Highway to come pay the PUB bill.
Okay, Ralph, we will be looking forward to get those final designs and drawings and the dates. We're going to talk about the dates right now, and we'll make sure that you get the information.
Well,
Okay? Thank you very much for your
thank you. I
comment.
appreciate the opportunity to express my views
Okay.
and to my concerns, and I appreciate your
Okay,
receiving them. Thank you.
thank you.
Ralph, the TXDOT and Pete here representing TXDOT, and I go around and around on different things, but we try to do it on a friendly basis because they work hard and they try to get their things done in the manner that engineers do it. But, as I tell Pete and everybody else, engineers are not entrepreneurs. They don't own businesses, and they don't necessarily make payrolls, and they don't necessarily count on business coming in so they can make those payrolls and sell items to pay taxes for the city and the county and everybody else. So it's sometimes it's a give and take, but if we have adequate turnarounds and turn-throughs, I think it'll work. But if they're not adequate, it'll be removed, just like the one that was done on Boca Chica back in the 80s, was built and was eventually removed because it wasn't accomplishing what needed to be accomplished.
Were there any other comments about our long-range plan? Just for the record, about the meeting that was held at the school, the TXDOT meeting. Antonio spent, about 3.5, 4 hours in the heat delivering notices to the businesses. And then the next day, last summer, I spent about 3 hours delivering flyers, letting people know about that open house. So that we together handed out about 200 flyers for the businesses on Boca Chica. So that We know that in all cases, maybe the owner of the business didn't get the notice, but we went door to door. I just want that known.
And it needs to also be pointed out that a lot of that meeting fell over into a flooding problem, and no one was there to discuss the flooding issues except a lot of the public that came. And that was detrimental to trying to get information passed out to the people interested in what was happening
Are
on the
there any other comments
construction.
about our MTP? If not, we've got a
Yeah.
presentation from Eva. Thank you.
Caracal Trails. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning. I see a lot of familiar faces, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Eva Garcia. I'm from here, and I've been a planner with the city of Brownsville for about 5 years. But more recently, I got hired to be the project manager for the LRGB Active Plan, which is now being called the Caracal Trails. So a little bit of background, this really started as a health initiative. If you don't know, we're a very low-income community. We have a very young population, and additionally, we're finding out that about 80% of our population is either overweight or obese, and 1 in 3 are diabetic, which is really staggering considering that 1 in 3 Americans are projected to be diabetic in 2050, and we're already there. So in 2016, the communities of Cameron County came together with the School of Public Health and some other stakeholders and partners. And we decided what do we really want to do with our community. And overall, people wanted to improve the transportation, the economy, and the health of our region. And so the active plan was adopted in November 2016. Again, to generate new economic opportunities throughout the county, diversify the local tourism market, link the communities by creating a regional bicycle and pedestrian network to promote healthy lifestyles. So this is a little bit of our tourism economy right now, our tourism market. We have a lot of people come to the beach, a lot of birders, winter Texans, and they may get out to the water or enjoy the sights. We also have a lot of agriculture in our area. New wind farms are being built. And there's a lot of public lands as well as private lands, considering our highways, the right-of-ways, railroad corridors, there are rivers and arroyos, and of course the irrigation canals and the drainage ditches. So we basically proposed this 428-mile trail network, and it encompasses on-street bike lanes, multi-use trails, and paddling trails as well. A lot of these roadways are proposed on public lands. And so they'll really be doing that. They'll be connecting our local parks, our county parks, state parks, National Park Service land, U.S. Fish and Wildlife land, and the World Birding Centers that we have here locally in our area. So just a little bit of a breakdown. This is the proposed paddling trail that the Caracal Trails Coalition is now working on implementing, and it would go all along the coast from the South Bay, along the Laguna Madre, and into the Arroyo, Colorado, terminating between Harlingen and San Benito, and we would pursue getting state designation as Texas paddling trails. Additionally, we have a large proposed multi-use trail network, and this is really the bread and butter of the plan to connect really all of these communities and all of these public lands together. Additionally, we have an on-street route. This is called the United States Bicycle Route. It's proposed to be number 55. It's part of a larger corridor plan put out by AASHTO and Adventure Cycling Association. If designated, we would basically have to go through the Texas Department of Transportation, first at the district level and then at the state level, to get this designation through AASHTO. And so this is a little bit of some renderings of what we're proposing to do, some of the changes we'd like to have in order to promote health, to provide some alternative transportation options, and to boost the local economy. So just using a lot of the amenities we already have here, a lot of our environmental assets, and really just building something where people can spend time and money. Part of the active plan was to implement it, to organize and formalize, and so we've come up with the Caracal Trails Advisory Committee. It's composed of 11 municipalities as of right now, and more are able to join as well as other counties. We have our MPOs participating, our Development Council, Regional Development Council, the School of Public Health, Texas Parks and Wildlife, National Park Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we're inviting Implan Matamoros, and the Birding Festival has been participating with us since 2016. So you might be thinking, why do we want to do this? Well, there's really a lot of economic benefits. In North Carolina alone, Paddling tours contribute $55 million in economic impact. I like to show the example of the Great Allegheny Passage. It costs $80 million to complete, but it now generates up to $100 million in annual spending. And so you might be wondering, how are we going to afford this? How are we going to build it? Well, a lot of the communities are already applying for transportation funds. These are just the federal transportation funds that have been awarded. They have CSJ numbers. They have fiscal years for letting. And so I'm collecting all of this information right now to make sure that we're keeping track of it. So far, total funded is about $11 million. And we're leveraging this federal funding with private funds. These are some projects funded by the Valley Baptist Legacy Foundation and Health Organization. And there's also other projects even being funded by Texas Parks and Wildlife and other opportunities. And we did in 2017 do our own economic impact study with the National Parks Conservation Association. And with just 291 miles built, we're projected to have about $70 million in annual spending by out-of-county visitors. With this means trail construction, full-time jobs, wages, and additionally, more importantly, or for us locally, is that they're projected to see yearly healthcare cost savings just from increased physical activity to about $6 million to $12 million, which is huge for our community. And we'd like to get the economic development agencies involved so that we can help businesses like this make improvements like this. To really just promote the region and time here. And I'll able to entertain any questions if you have any right now regarding the Gata Gata trails.
Any questions for Eva?
I just want to recognize your efforts. I think it's a really, really important item. I know the city of Brownsville as a whole is very committed to pedestrian, bicyclists, the activities, and wellness as a whole. So thank you for your efforts. I think we continue to have the conversation. Your energy level, as I mentioned at the last meeting, is there and your enthusiasm to make sure that projects like this become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am really excited. Hopefully I'll be getting designated to the State Bicycle Advisory Committee at the next commission meeting that they have on August 29th. So that would be fun.
We'll see you there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next log, project status report.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gabriel Villarreal with TxDOT San Benito Area Office. I will be giving the status update for two of the TxDOT MPO projects that were listed on this last report. The two projects that we're going to be discussed is a traffic signal and sidewalk improvement project, as well as the I-69 pedestrian bridge project. The traffic signal and sidewalk improvement project, right now they're currently at location 4. As discussed in the last presentation, they were at location 1, and all the items of work have been completed there, except for the electrical service to the traffic signal devices that are at that location. Right now, they're currently at location 4, and they're currently installing the drill shafts for the traffic signal devices that are there, as well as completion of sidewalks. This is at Morningside and Apollo, and across the street is at Apollo and Jose Colunga. They're installing sidewalks at that location right there. The pedestrian overpass at that project, they're continuing with the installation of MSC wall. They're at MSC wall number 4, which is that retaining wall that you see right there on that photo. They're also currently working on the installation of a conduit for the illumination for the pedestrian bridge. You can see the conduit there on the ground and the backhoe in the further back trenching. Also what they're doing there this past month, they've started with the installation of coping for the MSC wall on the opposite side of the expressway. So they've been continuing with that as well. That's pretty much the status update for those two projects. Any questions?
Since I'm new to the group, where exactly is the pedestrian bridge going to be?
That is on, it's on the, 1 second.
The northbound of I-69?
I-69, yes.
Wait, so, tell me like what's on the frontage?
Landmark.
It's gonna be an overpass over the railroad tracks. You know, right now, if you're going along the frontage road, there's a gate, and you literally physically have to stop at the railroad tracks.
Okay, so, and on the other side is the flea market?
So this will be
Yes.
going, yes, this will be
Okay.
going over the tracks.
Yes. So there's
Por
going to
donde
be,
vive Zúñiga? Or I don't know if you'll know him, but, yeah, okay. Really? You need a pedestrian bridge there?
yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to be 3 pedestrian bridges. One, because on that, going northbound, you have the sports park. So there's only one bridge for the pedestrians, and then two bridges for the vehicular, one for northbound and southbound. So 3 bridges at the end of the day.
So you have a lot of pedestrian traffic there?
The reason for that, ma'am, is because there's no access on the frontage roads, and we have had in the past with bikers that go over the expressway. So
Being
that's,
mostly-
It's really mainly for bikes,
Okay.
to tell you the truth.
Okay, any other question for TxDOT? Thank you.
Thank you.
City of Brownsville. Carlos. Thank you.
Good morning. I got 2 projects I'm going to discuss. First one is Almago Drive improvements. The limits of the project are from Las Palmas Circle to Price Road. This project has been completed. It's basically a connector that alleviates the congestion at the intersection of Old Port Isabel and the exit to that subdivision. As y'all have driven that area, there's always people trying to get in and out, can't because the traffic's up, so this allows an outlet to that. Project turned out really well. It's got sidewalks, curb and gutter.
Is it already open?
Yes, very good. Next one is Roosevelt Street improvements. Limits are from McDavitt Boulevard to 13th Street. This is a section from the railroad tracks to 13th Street. It's pretty much been completed. The pending section is from McDavitt to the railroad tracks, and when this picture was taken, they were just pouring this, but this has been completed. We got most of all the curb work done, and the target is to pave, hopefully by the end of this week, pave it, and they'll still be doing minor work on the side, like sidewalks and driveway stuff, but hopefully the plan is to finish either late this week or early next week, have it paved. Looking forward to that.
When is this going to be open to the public?
As soon as it's paved, yeah, by the end of the week, hopefully, or early next week.
Okay. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Cameron County, do we have somebody reporting from Cameron County? Regional mobility, do we have, Port of Brownsville, do we have a report?
Just, normally the regional mobility will take care of, but we've got the connector from the port down to Highway 4 to Boca Chica. And that's going along. We still have some things to take care of. Engineering's done. It's quite different than what was planned many years ago. And so it's taken a little more time, and funding is going to be coming through TxDOT a lot. They're going to be helping us there. Within the perimeter of the port, within the secured area inside the gates, we're finishing up on some projects that TxDOT has assisted with, and we're trying to be a little bit smarter about a lot of it by concreting a lot of the intersections, because these heavy trucks stop, and where they stop creates the problem. So we're getting that done, and long-range planning on many other areas in the port that will need to be done, including some outside the port. I know Highway 48 was mentioned earlier in the meeting, and we're looking at some activity as far as the LNGs coming in the not-too-distant future. Hopefully, they'll be making some commitments as far as their financing availability and everything before the end of the year. That means their construction will probably start the first part of the summer, second quarter of next year, and when that happens, they're going to be looking at a lot of traffic on Highway 48 for the contractors and people doing the work there. So that's going to be, it's going to be a real congested area before very long.
Okay, any other comments? Public comments, any questions? Any new businesses that we might
There's
have?
no new business other than I want to inform you that I will be the City of Brownsville's representative to the Technical Committee at the Rio Grande Valley MPO, and then if there's an occasion where I cannot attend, Norma Zamora, the director at Brownsville Metro, she'll be the alternate. So we have had good cooperation, the three MPO directors working together to have a smooth transition. And it's an awful lot of work, but things are proceeding smoothly, and we look forward to keeping you informed.
Okay. Any other issue that we need to discuss?
Let me ask Mark, have the appointments to the Rio Grande Valley MPO, the representatives to that board been made complete yet? Are they still some of them pending?
What's that?
The representatives to the Rio Grande Valley MPO?
Yeah, that's, the board is elected its officers, and
So it's complete, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's complete.
When are they going to start meeting?
They've had 2 board meetings, and the next one, I think, is September 10th or 11th?
25th.
Pardon me?
September 25th is the next.
The next one, okay. Yeah, and there'll be a technical meeting the 10th or the 11th.
Good.
Are we going to be meeting also here in Brownsville on a monthly basis?
Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Are we going to be meeting on a monthly basis here in Brownsville?
No. Our next meeting on September 18th is our last meeting. And so we'll go into history. And I've enjoyed working with all sorts of people, all sorts of projects. I thank you now. If you can't come to our next meeting, I thank everybody for your cooperation. It's been wonderful working on behalf of the community. And it's not just Brownsville, Los Fresnos, Rancho Viejo, the folks that live in the county. It's been very eye-opening. So I thank you, and I think we can arrange to have some pan dulce at our next meeting. That'll be my swan song for 25 years of working on MPO matters.
Okay.
We can afford that, right, Alfonso?
Yeah, okay. Yes. Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you very much for everybody to be here.